Hello again. Today we will be talking about posting content and inferences. We talked about social networks, social media, social platforms that you use to interact with each other, and the main premise that we were talking about is about security, about privacy, what you need to do to protect the data that you post. Today we want to talk about how you post content, what inferences are made from the content that you post, and what leads to or can lead to identity theft. We talked about transitive disclosures when we talked about access control, and we want to try to look at all of this and see how these lead to inferences and consequently to identity theft. So let's take, for example, what we do daily. We have daily activities where we post, for example, exciting pictures, funny quotes that we find. So, for example, what we have here, which is to say something like, whoever thinks money doesn't bring happiness, transfer it over to my account. And what typically happens is that you find some picture like this, it makes you laugh, and you want to send it around to your friends, so you share it with your friends, and they can all contribute to it. They can say whether, for example, they like the picture, they can send comments on the picture, and all of this interaction and body of information contributes to enriching the experience of participating on the social media platform that you're working on. But pictures may be okay, but what do they say about you, for example? If you post, for example, some random picture like the one we just talked about, maybe it doesn't say anything about you, or maybe it says something like you haven't got enough money and you're looking for ways to make money for yourself, or maybe it tells something about the location of where you are, or something like your email address that you post, for example. So if your friend in commenting on the picture said, oh, hey, I haven't talked to you for a long while, can you send me your telephone number? What you do is to type your telephone number on this body of work or this body of information that is being broadcast. Then what happens is that not only your friend can see your telephone number, but also people who are reading this information that has been posted. And so it is all of this information that you post, how you post it, how you interact with the details or the information that you have that is being broadcast, that contributes to leakages of information that can lead to leakages of information such as, for example, your location, where you are at, where you work, where, for example, you live, and so on. So how this can lead to identity theft is basically that if you have posted so much content that it tells somebody exactly who you are, so for example, your address, your email address, your telephone number, and so on, it allows the person to be able to tell exactly, for example, where you are. So we all know, for example, that telephone numbers tell you pretty much at least the country in which the person is located at. And so this makes it easier for the guys who are wanting to do bad things to constitute a personality that resembles almost exactly and sometimes exactly the personality that you really are. So what we define identity theft as is the deliberate use of someone else's identity, usually to gain some financial advantage and usually to the detriment of the victim. So identity theft, how does it happen? Well, we know that your identity is composed of bits of information that differentiate you in a unique way from everybody else. So for example, you have a name, you have a date of birth, you have a gender, and so on. And all of this information is meant to, at least in some unique way, allow people to be able to differentiate you from everybody else. What you don't want to do, therefore, is to make this information available to people who might use it to impersonate you. So, for example, you don't want them to be able to collect these bits of information both from one social media platform that you're using to interact with people that you know, and from other social media platforms. Okay. So some examples of how data is collected, and we said that data collection can enable identity theft, and therefore what you post, what you make available, you should be careful about. Okay. So we think about what we post. We need to think about what that says about us, what information we are divulging in posting information. So for example, you don't want to post your telephone number because this tells people immediately where exactly you're located at, where, for example, you might be living, and whether or not, for example, this phone is a fixed phone or whether it's a mobile phone. You want to be careful about the photographs that you post. First of all, because they say every photograph conveys a message, and you don't want information about yourself that portrays you in a negative way to be made available to the public. You want to also think about things like transitive disclosures. We talked about transitive disclosures when we talked about access control, and when we talked about privacy policies. You want to be careful about what you make available to your friends and what you allow your friends to make available to their friends. So you want to try to limit the number of steps or the number of people who are getting access to the bodies of information that you're posting, particularly if this information is not meant to be shared publicly. You want to be careful about what you share, what you repost, because there is a message that is carried on, and as we will see further on, posting and reposting messages can also be used to propagate malware. So next time what we want to talk about is spoofing, and we want to wrap up today by saying that we look at content. Content is important because it enriches the experience of social media, but we need to be careful about what we post because it can be used to provoke identity theft. We looked at some data collection approaches, for example, in what we post, for example, on one social media platform, what that then leads to people deducing about other information that we have on other social media platforms, the photographs that we post, for example, what those say about us, and all of this body of information that we need to think about carefully when we decide to make public, or that when we decide to publish and make available to our friends.